Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Max van Praag, your host, and we are on Private Matters TV, a program on sexual awakening and empowerment. My guest today is Janice Zarro Brodman, an international development expert and the author of the book that we are talking about today. A very fun and interesting book about sex, which is called Sex Rules, ! Astonishing Sexual Practices and Gender Roles Around the World. Welcome, Janice.
Hello, nice to be here.
Interesting. You normally you deal with economics and violence against women in your profession, and you wrote this book. Why did you write this book?
I had two objectives when I wrote the book. One is that I've been a horrible workaholic for most of my life, and I decided to write something that was fun and funny and that I had fun writing and that I hoped people would have fun reading, and that had a lot of surprising tidbits about cultures that most people don't know about. And the second objective was to show that there is such a wide range of views about sexuality and what's normal and natural for men and women. And hopefully to bust some stereotypes, promote tolerance, and to show that although these are very different, as long as no one's getting hurt, they're all legitimate. And of course, the ones I tended to like best were the places where women have power. So these are places where women run the mating game, women control marriage, women have economic power. So it was both of those things: have fun, write something fun, and also hopefully promote some tolerance.
Well, but I was wondering when I was reading the book, if you actually had visited all these countries. That's a lot of places.
It is a lot of places. I did not. I did a huge amount of research over many, many years. Over decades, actually. And I have a lot of information about all kinds of aspects of cultures that we know, that most people know little about. I picked sexuality and relationships because most people find that interesting. But most of it, I mean, I've been in some of those places, but most of them are places that I did that are the information's based on research.
Yeah, let's name some of the places that are in the book. I remember South Africa and Iran and Indonesia and South Pacific and Hawaii.
Right, there are places from pretty much all over the world.
Right, places from all over the world, and I can see that you have a lot of information when I look at the resources in the back of the book. It's a very interesting list of literature at the end of the book. So the focus is on women in power throughout the book. I don't see a lot of patriarchal societies, although I'm sure they exist. But you focused on matriarch.
I focused on stereotype busting. So most people assume that men are always in power. And so a lot of what I wrote about were places where women have power, but there are also places where other attitudes about sexuality and relationships are very different from one another. Attitudes about homosexuality, attitudes about marriage, and economic power. So there is a wide range in the book about different ways that power and relationships are set up very differently from the way they are in the United States and most of the West.
Yes, very differently set up. Yes, there's even I think a situation where the women are not only in charge at home, but also at work and financially. Is that right?
Right. So, let's look at, we could look at different parts of this. So part of it is sexual practice. And so you have places where, for example, the Biwat of Papua New Guinea. If you say to the Biwat, who's more sexually driven, men or women? They say, well, that's obvious, women. And they assume women have huge amounts of lust and are very sexually driven, and the women cruise for lovers all the time, whether they're engaged or not. And you can tell if a man has just had sex with a woman because he's got scratches on his face and bite marks on his neck. I mean, she's completely sexually uninhibited and wild. There are places, again, in terms of sexual practice, where, like the Mangyans believe everyone loves sex, men and women. And men spend a huge amount of their time learning to be great lovers. So they learn about they spend a lot of time learning about women's genitals. And the average Mangyan male knows more about women's genitals than the average Western doctor. And just like Eskimos with snow have a lot of words for snow, Mangyans have a lot of words for the clitoris. So pointed, chubby, long, short. So they spend a lot of time doing that, and they train. I mean, it's very important for women to enjoy sex. So men spend a lot of time getting trained by older women in how to be great lovers. And the women also rate men publicly. So there's those sorts of things. There are a lot of places like that. In terms of marriage, there are a lot of places where their attitudes about spouses and sexuality are very different from ours. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the Lesu of Melanesia, they assume everyone's going to have lovers, men, and they're all spouses. And if a young husband, if his wife is not having a lot of lovers, he worries about her. Is there something wrong with her? Is she mentally ill? The wrong also assume everyone has lovers. And in fact, the wrong have no word for sexual jealousy. They just think it's unbelievable that human beings would be sexually jealous. Human beings just aren't. Maybe animals are, but humans aren't. So there are, there's that sort of thing. And then there are lots of places where women control land and women have the economic power. And for example, the Kasi of India, women own all the land and have the economic power. Men's role is to clean house, keep the house clean, and to work in the rice field. And men are also very good at singing and making music, playing music.
That would sound like in our culture, like more feminine values.
Exactly. So these are where it's sort of.
And how do these women do they act more like men? Do they move like men? Do they have more masculine energy? And how do they look at their men?
So there are places where the woman, the role of the woman is to shave her head and hunt. And the role of the man, so the Chambuli, for example, men spend all day fixing their hair, putting on jewelry, putting on makeup. Women do women's work, which is to shave their heads and hunt. That's what women do. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of places where women own all the land and have all the economic power. They're the ones who take chances. They're the ones who make economic decisions, and they make the decisions for their entire communities. And there are lots and lots of communities like that. There are places like the Ede of Vietnam where women are traditionally the village head and the highest authority. So families are big extended families. The highest family authority is the oldest woman. So that's what, the idea of what's normal and natural for a woman in these societies is that women are strong, women have control, women have power. And in many societies, they want to promote that. So there are lots of places where they want their women to be self-confident, like the Kroong of Cambodia. They want their women to be self-confident and strong. And so the way they do it is they give young women, when they're teenagers, a room of their own. And in that room, she has total control. So she can invite any boy over, and he stays the night. But what they do is she decides. So will they snuggle? Will they talk? Will they have sex? Will they just sleep? She decides completely. Whatever she says goes. If he suggests something and she says no, he obeys absolutely immediately. And the penalty for not doing that would be not only bad for him, but for his whole family. So men in those cases, in many of these cases, the men don't take initiative. That's not their role. Their role, the role is for the woman to have control, the woman to have power, and for the man to respond in the way that he wants him to respond.
Fascinating, fascinating. And there's also, I remember a place where women can have sex with a man before marriage, but not dinner.
Right. Yes, that's right. That's right. There are places where the Trobriand Islands is one of them. That's what I have. They just assume that teenage.
Which place was that?
Trobriand Islands.
Okay.
They just assume that teenagers have sex, and teenagers will have sex, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's completely normal. So parents expect their daughters to have sex, and in fact, parents will help their daughters pick out men who look like good lovers.
Yeah.
So hooking up for sex is fine, but she cannot do, and if she did this, she would be ostracized, is to have a meal with an unmarried man, a man she's not married to. So sex is fine, completely acceptable, but you dare not have a meal with a man you're not married to, and if you did, you'd just be ostracized.
That's right. I remember also a situation where a woman becomes somebody's husband. A woman becomes the husband of another woman.
Right, and there are several places like that. Sometimes they do it usually, so there's never sex involved in those situations.
It's not a lesbian relationship.
It's exactly. Women marry other women for the same reasons that many men get married, which is that they want power. So women marry other women to take care of the house, take care of the land, take care of the kids. In some places, she has to give up her marriage to a man if she was married before. In some places she doesn't, but she becomes a husband, and she has all the power and prerequisites in those societies, which are typically male. She gets those when she marries a woman and becomes a husband.
Yeah, interesting. Can you speak a little bit about? There's one sexual topic that I haven't found in the book, or maybe I didn't see it, and that's prostitution.
Yeah, I didn't include a lot of aspects of sexuality and sexual relationships that are not counter stereotype.
Yeah, understand.
So I didn't include prostitution.
Yeah. You focused on things that people don't know about.
People don't know about, and where it's sort of anti-stereotype.
Yes.
So prostitution tends to be a little stereotypical. Important topic, but it's not. No, I didn't look at that in the book at all. I mean, I looked at other things besides just women with power. So, for example, there are societies, the attitudes about homosexuality are totally.
Yes, can we elaborate a little bit on that?
So, in many societies, homosexuality is not only accepted but good. For example, the Toro of PNG, they think that all men, to be healthy, a man has to have a male lover. He can get married, that's fine, but he has to have a male lover.
A man has to have a male lover. He must
have a male lover. Okay. That's the only way for a man to be strong. The Toro also, they have another interesting.
Well, not only that, he has to drink the semen.
That's right. Semen makes him strong.
And that will make him even stronger.
Exactly.
Yes.
So oral homosexual sex is what makes men strong. It also helps the entire society. It makes crops grow and thrive. It makes the community grow and thrive. This is central to a healthy community, for all men to have a male lover with whom they have oral sex. And it's interesting also with the Otoro, the idea within marriage, the worst case, the worst thing you can do, I mean, the most disgusting thing you could do that would, if your neighbors found out, you would be run out of the village, is to have sex with your spouse in your house. That's the absolute worst thing you can possibly do. It's so disgusting, they can barely imagine that anyone does that. Because obviously the only place to have sex with your spouse is in the forest, far away from the house, far away from...
This is not everywhere. Which culture is this?
This is the Toro of PNG, of Papua New Guinea. Whereas oral sex between men is perfectly fine anytime, anywhere, because it's healthy. So there are very different views about homosexuality, and there's, you know, that sort of
interesting
in the book as well.
Yes, yes, interesting. Can you read something?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I will read
a few sentences.
I'll read one piece.
Yeah, so for the viewers, the book is organized with many very short chapters, and it has images, it has pictures, and it has maps of the countries in question, and it's many very short chapters. It's a very fun and playful layout.
Exactly. I mean, the idea is to give a glimpse of a lot of variety of ways of stereotype busting cultures. This is called, is that a vibrator in your pocket, or are you glad to see me? Who's more obsessed with sex, men or women? Now there's a no-brainer, declare the Biwat of Papua New Guinea. Women. Women, they explain, are ruled by uncontrollable lust. No normal woman can smother her incessant, raging desire for sex, much less wait for marriage. The men claim to want only virgins. Young Biwat women polish their skin with oil, dress in their sexiest dress skirts, and are constantly cruising for new lovers, even after they're engaged to be married. See someone cute in his flying foxskin loincloth, nicely decorated with shells? Getting to know him well enough for the roll in the woods takes about 3 seconds. As long as she's even the slightest bit discreet, everyone happily ignores her little lapses. Want to know which guy got lucky? Easy. Fresh bite wounds on his neck, ripped clothes, face and hands scratched. The Biwat easily explain a woman's wild sexual antics. Has she not a vulva?
And screwing a guy is fine, but don't you dare engage in a premarital meal. Want to be the village bad girl, have dinner with the guy before you're married, right? And then there is for Hawaii. I'm currently running this interview from the island of Maui. You can hear the roosters and the birds in the background, and you, Janice, you're in Boston, a whole different climate. So here in Hawaii, it says people were very devout and had great respect for their genitals and talked to them lovingly. There's even famous sites. There's a huge penis stone and the vulva stone on Molokai, and the vagina rock 20 feet long on the big island.
Right.
Interesting.
The Hawaii, traditionally the Hawaiians, and they made up songs for their genitals. Nobody wanted to. No, there's no room for false modesty here. They sang songs to their genitals, praising their friskiness of women's vaginas, men's penises, and how strong and long they were. So people developed chants and songs to their vaginas just as and to their penises just as they would to a lover. These were very important sources of power, and people loved them and had a lot of affection for them.
Were you actually in Hawaii to do some research on this?
I have been in Hawaii many times. It wasn't specifically to do research. Yes, but I did visit some of these places. Right?
There's a quote from David Data, a very well-known, controversial teacher of intimacy in the U.S., who says that Hawaii is the most feminine place on the planet. All the luscious, the humidity, people are laid back, and women are, in fact, very empowered here. It's amazing to see that even around the Women's March and the Me Too movement, that women are a lot calmer and less combative than in other parts of the country. They just trust their power a lot. It's beautiful to see. And New York would be the most masculine place on the planet, where everybody is, going somewhere, goal-directed, goal-oriented. And I really like that analogy, actually.
Yeah, except that Chambuli would say that they've got it absolutely opposite, because that men are ones who love flowers and jewelry and softness and children, and men and women are the ones who are tough and shave their heads and hunt. So that is a stereotype that one might embrace, but certainly is not universal. That it's totally perceived in a totally opposite way in many places.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm not sure that Hawaiians would agree with it either. In Hawaii, men wearing women's clothes is completely acceptable. I don't think the men think that they're less masculine, but the idea that a man would want to wear women's clothes and would do women's work is considered great. Finally there's a man who can do women's work. So these ideas that being feminine is one thing and being masculine is something, and our stereotypes about that just aren't universal.
Okay, that's one of the lessons from your book.
I hope so.
Yeah. And so you believe that this book is a good Valentine's Day gift, since we're getting to Valentine?
I hope so. I think it would be. I think it's fun and funny, and I think most people would enjoy it, since it's about little known cultures. It's a great gift for a guy to give a woman, because most women enjoy reading about places where women have power. It could be a great gift for a woman to give a man. If he's liberated, he'd enjoy it. If he's needs a little eye-opening, he would get that. So I think it would be really a fun, funny, affectionate, interesting Valentine's gift.
Yes. And messages are around empowerment for women and being open-minded, and that anybody can be a 10 somewhere. You said that also in the book.
I'm sorry, anybody can.
So anybody can be a 10.
Right. Yeah, it depends on where you are. Yeah, that views about what's beautiful, what beauty is, varies so much. So the Yap, for example, and the Lu of Vietnam think that black teeth is what's beautiful. So women blacken their teeth. Interestingly, some of it's very different. So, for example, the Pima of North America and the Wokio of Papua New Guinea, they think that white skin is just hideously ugly, and nobody would want to be pale. And the Wokio believe that pale skin, especially blondes, is just so awful that they can understand why Europeans wear all those clothes to hide that horrible white skin. So, ideas of beauty really vary. One of them that I actually love is that in some places, many places actually, the idea of beauty is that is long labia. So women pull on their labia to make themselves beautiful, and girls, instead of getting together and fixing their hair and trying out hairdos, they pull on one another's labia to make them long so that they will be beautiful. And it's one of the few places where beauty tips actually pay off for the woman, because having long labia also actually increases a woman's sexual pleasure.
What about pubic hair? Did you discover anything about pubic hair?
I did not actually. That's a good question. I don't think that that I saw anything where people had any particular feeling or belief about the pubic hair, either in terms of sexuality or beauty.
Well, would it be fair to say, assume that the shaving of the pubic hair is mostly done in the Western?
I would say probably exclusively.
Yeah.
That's not something that people ordinarily in most of these cultures would think would be acceptable or interesting.
Yeah. Do you have any idea why people in the West do that?
I could hypothesize.
Okay, maybe we shouldn't go there.
Tend to like women being infantilized, but that's a whole different topic.
Yeah. What about the Native Americans, Janice? Have you looked into the Navajos and the Hopis?
Yeah, and that actually raises a really great point that, we were talking about gender roles, and I think it's important to mention that the idea that there are only two genders is not perceived in many, many, many cultures. Many cultures define 3, 4, and more genders. So, for example, the First Nations of North America, there are many that identify at least 3 genders. The Navajo have 5 genders, identify 5 genders. But not just in North America. I mean, the Bugis of Indonesia, they identify 5 genders, and all of these genders they are specific genders, not just, oh, these are men acting like women. These are very specific genders. There are what we would call cis men and cis women, and then there are people who were identified as male because of genitals as children, but grow up to act like women and feel like women. That's a totally different gender, very respected. It has in fact, in many ways, it has its own power that's more than a cis man or cis woman. Similarly, for people born with female genitals who act and feel masculine. And then there are for where there are 5, there are the shaman, whose role is to create harmony, and they bring together all the genders. So this idea of 2 genders is
I've studied the Navajos quite a bit, and my understanding is that it's a matriarch society. The women are in charge at the house, and the oldest female is the most respected and wisest person of the family and the tribe. And it's the oldest person in the family, the grandmother, who decides whether 2 young people are allowed to marry.
Right.
That it's run by the oldest female.
Right, and there are many societies like that where women run things, and women are the top authority and have. I mean, the Ede of Vietnam is one where the highest authority of the extended family, so that can be a village, is the woman, is the oldest woman. In the Ede, that what men are good at are arranging weddings, and that men are also good at being the mouthpiece of the community to the government. So they can speak. They have to say what the women want them to say, but they're good at being the mouthpiece to the government. All
right. Okay. Yeah, sex rules, gender roles, sexual gender roles around the world. Janice, it's been really fun to talk to you about your book. As an encouragement for anybody who feels inspired to do a project on sexuality, even if that's not their main direction, to do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I should say that this was based on decades of research, so it does take effort, but it may not be the place that you earned your salary.
Well, who knows where it will lead for you. Yeah. Thanks Thanks for all this information. And
Thank you.
we are closing here. I am Max van Praag. This is Private Matters TV on sexual awakening and sexual empowerment. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.